White as snow, red as blood. Chapter 9. The next morning, Snow and Rose got up earlier than the sun. There was a lot of work to be done, and neither of them slept well. Snow excused herself to the library while Rose took off to the gardens. The first book Snow took from the shelf was an encyclopedia on poisonous plants. She quickly sat at the nearest table and flipped through until she found wolfsbane, which was accompanied by a detailed sketch of the plant. As she suspected, it was commonly used in potions and became non-lethal once magic was involved. However, there was nothing that stated what types of potions it was used in. The lack of information wasn't too surprising. Wizards had a natural talent and rarely kept recipes. She sighed and slumped in her chair. Then she tensed up when she felt someone reading over her shoulder. "Wolfsbane, I? Who's been bothering you?" a hoarse voice croaked. Snow stood, spinning to see it was an older gentleman with a large book tucked under one arm. He was a squat, bald man with round glasses. He chuckled before slamming his large textbook next to hers. "Sorry for scaring you, miss. I know from your green apron you're an herbalist. Ain't too strange for you lot to be cautious of poisonous plants. Though, we should all be on the outlook for those." Snow relaxed and settled into her seat while she read the title of the man's book. He was studying plant life as well. "Are you one too?" The man blinked in confusion, but then he shook his head. "Me? A herbalist? Not quite. As people say, I'm the castle wizard, though my official title is head magician, which is silly considering I'm the only one." Snow frowned, wondering if that meant this man created Richard's potions and not Chief Elijah. Regardless, he would be able to answer a few questions for her. "Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Snow White." The man shook her hand before sitting down next to her. "Aw, I should have known. The entire staff has been whispering about you and Prince Nathaniel." "Well, Snow White, my name is Benjamin. If I may, I actually had a question about wolfsbane. It says here that it is no longer lethal when combined with magic, but what type of potions would it be used in?" Let's see. He rested his glasses on the edge of his narrow nose as he read the summary. Once he was finished, he looked up at her and smiled. "Quite simply, there are a multitude like the book suggests. One wizard I know uses it to keep wolves away from farm animals, while another uses it to create a wolf-slaying sword. Then there are rumors that one wizard even used it with a wolf's blood to turn into a wolf. But they all revolve around wolves, correct? Nothing for bears?" Benjamin flipped through her book, coming to the Karoo flower. He tapped his finger on the sketch of the rare Hamilton plant. If there was any potion bear-related, it would contain this. Or bear blood if they felt so inclined. This wouldn't happen to be about Prince Nathaniel's curse, would it? Snow gasped and glanced around the large library. "You know about that?" Benjamin let out a hoot. "Know about it? Of course, I know about it. That's why Queen Astrid hired me. She wanted me to research how to break the curse. You see, I knew Framsey back when we were kids." "Wait, Framsey? Oh, the old head magician. The one who broke into the treasury and cursed Nathaniel. The centaur. You mean to say the royal family hired him?" "Yes, but apparently he got greedy. And, at the time, the position was kept on the down low. I suspect he wanted his great deeds to be remembered." Snow scooted forward in her seat, not knowing she would be diving into the backstory of the centaur. "And what can you tell me about his curses? How exactly did he manage to permanently change himself and Nathaniel?" Based on the potions he left behind in his study, he combined his blood with an animal's. I think the idea was to replicate the potion given to the original centaurs. He must have pulled it off, seeing as he became one. As for Nathaniel, as far as I understand, Framsey threw the bottle at him. That scar under the prince's eye must be where it hit. And if Framsey used the Karoo flower in that particular potion, then it would absorb into the skin. And Framsey's blood would also mean the curse was connected to the wizard. Smart girl. Chief Elijah is lucky to have you. Though Prince Nathaniel is far luckier to have such a devoted sweetheart. Snow blushed and gathered up the book. Thank you for all your help. I hope to see you around, Mr. Benjamin. The feeling is mutual. Benjamin beamed before turning to his own book and letting Snow retreat. Hurriedly, Snow went through aisles to return the book to its original spot, eager to tell Rose everything she discovered. However, as she turned into the aisle she wanted, she almost smacked straight into Queen Astrid. She stammered backward to avoid the collision, and both women tensed with their eyes wide. Being only 3 bookshelves down from the table, Snow wondered if the Queen had heard their discussion. Queen Astrid had, in fact, heard the entire conversation, and while Snow believed it wouldn't impact the Queen's view of her, it did the exact opposite. It cemented Queen Astrid's desire to end the girl once and for all. Ah, Snow. What brings you here this early? Queen Astrid smiled, feigning ignorance. Snow, having no reason to lie, lifted the book. I was researching wolfsbane. Seeing as it is poisonous, I was just curious why someone would use it in a potion. The Queen forced a laugh, though it caught halfway up her throat. I assume you are referring to the potion the chief keeps on the upper shelves. Well, you need not worry, Snow. Those are strictly for boosting Richard's immunity. Snow frowned, wondering if her sister had been wrong about the potion's use. Regardless of who was right or wrong, she wouldn't correct the Queen until she knew for certain. Oh, I see. That would make sense. Has His Highness built resistance to various poisons, then? What about Nathaniel? Oh, I mean Prince Nathaniel. Queen Astrid's lips curved into a smile as a wicked idea formed in her head. She placed a gloved hand on Snow's shoulder while the other secured Snow's book. The girl let the Queen take the encyclopedia, and Astrid hugged it to her chest. It was the very item she was looking for. At first, she thought running into Snow would make things difficult, but the girl had given her an out. Call my son as you please. You are his trusted friend, and I imagine his bride-to-be. Snow peered down and clasped her hands in front of her. It seemed incredibly vain to assume Nathaniel would ask her to marry him, especially after one outing. She supposed they had spent additional time together since then, but still. While the girl was in her own head, Queen Astrid narrowed her eyes as if she could tell Snow was plotting her downfall and only acting innocent. The Queen cleared her throat, removing her hand from Snow's shoulder to the spine of the book. Her fingers delicately tapped against the leather, and the movement drew Snow's eyes back up. Anyway, dear Snow, I was also thinking about Nathaniel's safety. Given that he has not been educated and exposed to these poisons, we need to rectify that immediately, which is why I was searching for this book. In fact, perhaps you and Rose would like to help? With Chief Elijah's assistance, of course. Snow smiled warmly, bowing her head. Yes, I would be honored. Excellent. Will you inform Nathaniel of the change in schedule for me? He should be in Richard's study. Then, I want you to wait for me in my quarters. In the meantime, I'll discuss the details with Elijah. Before Snow could ask where the study was located, Queen Astrid strode past the meek young woman and sped off towards the herbalist building. Astrid hugged the book tightly and desperately tried not to skip in glee. Finally, she was going to get rid of Snow White. She wasn't positive if Rose held the same threat as her sister, but Astrid knew better than to kill both of them at once. Not unless she could stage a carriage accident or something to that degree. Taking a breath, the queen paced herself and walked slower down the corridor. Guards saluted her when she walked past, and she offered them a nod. Everyone saw her as a graceful and open-minded queen. Rushing down the halls was a sure way to alert them that something was amiss. Once she reached the entrance, the queen informed her staff she would be visiting the herbalist building. An attendant quickly fastened Queen Astrid's fur cloak, and the large door ahead swung open. Astrid walked out into the chilly morning breeze, crossed the lower drawbridge, and went to the herbalist building. 2 guards accompanied her, but she dismissed them once she reached her destination. Astrid's eyes spotted Rose's red cloak out in the gardens as the men left her. Rose was fervently harvesting herbs, and the queen clicked her tongue as it occurred to her who else would mourn the sisters' deaths besides her sons. The chief would not be pleased but would get over it once all was said and done. Pushing past the pang of guilt, Astrid walked in. No one was at the front counter, but that was to be expected. Most of the staff, including Elijah, were resting. Astrid quickly entered Elijah's personal storage closet, just behind the front desk and next to his quarters. Seeing the labels in the dim morning light was difficult, and the queen stubbed her foot on a wooden box upon entering. Despite the challenges, she located the shelf where Elijah carefully packaged poisons. Quietly, the queen shifted the book to her left side and lifted the small containers with her right hand one by one, reading the labels. With each passing moment, her heart rate picked up. She knew she had an excuse to be there and had more authority than anyone else in the kingdom, but Elijah was an intelligent man she wanted to keep at her side. Finally, she found what she was looking for. It wouldn't be immediate, but the poison would ensure Snow died. She slipped the vial into her dress-hidden pocket and remembered to avoid the box on the floor on her way out. The hinges creaked as soon as she was out of the storage room and nearing Elijah's bedroom door. She froze and collected herself as Elijah swung the door open. She could tell he had fallen asleep at his desk again because he was massaging one side of his neck. He let out a yawn and was about to ask for the time, but at the sight of her, his lips lifted into a flirtatious smile as if they were 15 again. "Oh, my blessed queen. Has the day finally arrived?" Astrid placed her hand on his chest as he approached her, stopping him from advancing further. She gritted her teeth and hissed, "Not here. Richard is still." Elijah let out an exasperated sigh. His patience died at that moment, so in one swift movement, he pulled the queen by her right arm into his quarters and then shut and locked the door. Astrid didn't attempt to flee, and she enjoyed his touch when he lifted her chin so her eyes were aligned with his. She pressed her back against the door, waiting for him to see deep into her soul. "So let's talk about Richard then. I know I haven't found a lasting cure, Astrid, but we can secretly administer the potion we do have to ensure his safety and innocence. Will that settle your nerves?" Astrid lovingly grasped his hand, lowering it away from her chin. "Yes, that will work nicely. But you know we should wait until Richard is crowned. Only then can I step away and remarry with little fuss." Elijah grinned, pressing closer until their noses touched. "My queen, Richard is well on his way, and you'll always be carefully watched. It's been 3 years since the king's death. No one would question you seeking companionship. In fact, I've heard many citizens question why you haven't done so already. Richard himself once commented he wished you had a best friend or lover to draw your attention away from him every once in a while." Richard said that. Astrid pouted before she shook her head. This was a discussion for another time. "Look, Elijah, the day will come, but I am not here for that reason. This is about Nathaniel." "What about Nathaniel? Are you worried what he'll think?" "No. She drew away from him and walked to the center of the room, which was the size of her shoe closet. I just came to ensure Nathaniel is informed on poisons. Snow gave me the idea, actually. She revealed the book her fur cloak had hidden from Elijah's view. He took it and flipped through the pages. That would be a good lesson. And I assume Queen Mother Bear doesn't want to wait until tomorrow? Astrid scowled, a rare sight only her mirror and Elijah got to see. Elijah snorted and shook his head, closing the book. I'll see it gets done by the end of today, Your Majesty. A pleased smile replaced her scrunched features. She glided to Elijah and smoothed out his wrinkled uniform before she kissed the edge of his lips. As expected from the chief herbalist. We'll await you in Richard's study. She walked to the door, unlocking it, but before she left, she glanced back at Elijah, considering whether she should tell him her plan. But no, he would only try to dissuade her. So, instead, she looked at the cracked open window and desk cluttered with books. Please remember to close your window at night and don't fall asleep while working. As you command, Your Majesty, he bowed while beaming at her. After all this time keeping their distance, he still made her heart sing his name. They were so close, and she wouldn't let anyone ruin it for her. Applying the poison to the decorative hair comb went better than Queen Astrid anticipated. Due to the poison's nature, she lost a perfect pair of gloves, but it was a small price. Not that she considered the loss of her morality. However, she had lost sight of that once before. With the comb now in a secure velvet box, the queen left her study and went to her chambers, where she instructed Snow White to wait. Shockingly, the girl stood just outside the doors with Nathaniel beside her. Well, it wasn't really a surprise. Of course, Nathaniel was sticking to her like honey after she was sent to deliver a message to him. When the couple spotted the queen, Nathaniel straightened while Snow bowed. Astrid had to admit she relished the respect being queen offered her. Nathaniel, what are you doing here? Nathaniel tapped his foot and held his hand behind his back. Snow didn't know where to find your room. Bowing again, Snow explained, Forgive me, Your Majesty, I still get lost in the castle. Oh, that is quite all right. I should have known better and given you further instructions. I had wanted to speak to you without Nathaniel's presence, but he might as well know how fond I am of you. Here, this is for you. Queen Astrid extended the velvet box, and Snow accepted it in thanks. Once Snow saw the queen eagerly awaiting her to open it, she flipped the top up and gawked at the beautiful comb. It was silver with blue gems at the top, forming a floral pattern. I can't possibly take this, Snow said, extending the box to the queen. She pushed it back, avoiding any contact with the comb. No, no, no. A wizard gave it to me as a peace offering long ago, but I have never worn it. It's wasted on me, and the blue matches your eyes. Snow, considering her options, bit into her bottom lip. Then, the queen let out a squeak as Nathaniel picked the comb up and compared it to Snow's eyes. They do indeed, though your eyes are far prettier, Nathaniel confirmed before he nestled the comb into Snow's fine white hair. When he turned to his mother, the queen teetered out a laugh. She had gotten Snow to wear the comb but hadn't intended Nathaniel to touch it. Her mind raced, and she knew what she had to do. Yes, I knew it would. Now, let's go see Chief Elijah in Richard's study. She ushered the couple onward, glad Elijah was already in the room with Rose and Richard. Rose delicately placed the vials Astrid had gone through earlier on the small table a couple of feet in front of Richard's desk. 2 couches were on either side of the table, and Richard sat on one, enjoying his break. Like his brother, he straightened his posture as soon as his mother entered the room. Good, you're here, Elijah said, smiling in Nathaniel's direction. Everyone got settled on the couches, with Richard, Nathaniel, and Snow on one and Rose, Elijah, and Astrid on the other. During Elijah's lecture, Astrid eyed her son's condition and the tote of supplies Elijah brought with Rose's help. Surely an antidote was in there. She needed to come up with a reason for Nathaniel to take it. Of course, the obvious solution was to key Elijah into what she had done. Now, Your Highness, all of these are different types of poison. Some must be eaten while others sink into your skin upon contact, the chief said, gesturing to vials. Nathaniel nodded, following along with Elijah's words. As Chief Elijah continued his lecture, Snow White and Rose Red started to make mixtures that replicated the taste of various poisons so Nathaniel could safely distinguish between them. Admittedly, each had traces of the real poison, but not enough to kill. While they worked, Elijah allowed Nathaniel to sniff some of the bottles. The chief explained the odorless poisons and those that gave off distinct scents. Are some of these scents dangerous? Nathaniel asked, setting a vial down on the tabletop. Yes, but it's better to know the smell than be unaware, especially the sweet-smelling ones. Since these are in small quantities, nothing here will cause a major reaction. Astrid moved slightly closer to Elijah, bringing his attention to her. Chief, you will be going over antidotes as well, right? Nathaniel should have an understanding of what he needs to take if he were to be poisoned. Yes, I will. But I would like him to try these replicas first. The queen shifted her gaze to Snow, who started to show symptoms for poison. She swayed a little and paused in her work. Rose noticed too and frowned in Snow's direction. Are you all right? She whispered across the table. Snow smiled and replied, I felt dizzy for a second. I'm okay. Then, as she lifted an empty vial, preparing to pour her mixture into it, it slipped out of her fingers. The vial rolled on the carpet and onto the stone floor. Snow hummed and stood to retrieve it, but as soon as she got up, she crashed to the ground. Everyone bolted to her side, including Queen Astrid. While Nathaniel propped her up on his lap, the hairpiece fell out. Queen Astrid quickly kicked it under the couch and crouched by Snow's head. What's wrong with her? Queen Astrid asked, fanning Snow White's face. Elijah looked at Rose. What did she say to you? She said she became dizzy for a second. Perhaps the fumes of the poison? Nathaniel suggested. The chief shook his head. No, I don't think that's it. It's more than that. If you look, her skin has become abnormally red. I think she must have touched one of Hamilton's rare flowers. You mean the karoo flower that bears eat? The chief nodded. Keep her as cool as possible. At this point, it might have gotten deep inside her body. Luckily, I have an antidote prepared for this one already. Queen Astrid knew she couldn't stop Elijah, so she let it slide. Even if Nathaniel hadn't been exposed, she should have figured Elijah would know what was wrong with Snow. Within a matter of seconds, the chief located the antidote. Then Chief Elijah ran over and popped open the bottle. He instructed Nathaniel to open Snow's mouth. He did, and the chief poured blue liquid between the girl's lips. They waited. With every second, Queen Astrid resisted the urge to steal the bottle and force Nathaniel to drink the rest. However, he didn't seem to be affected. Maybe fate was smiling on the queen, and Snow would die while Nathaniel lived. Eventually, Snow White's eyes opened, and she began to breathe normally, along with everyone else. Chief Elijah relaxed and handed Snow White a container of lotion. Take this and apply it to your skin tonight. The karoo flower doesn't play nice. Snow White took it and said, Thank you, Chief, but I don't know how I got the karoo's pollen on me. I always try to be careful. Yes, I know, but even the most careful person makes mistakes. Just get some rest for the day. I'll go get someone too. I got it, Nathaniel said, already helping Snow White up to her feet. Are you sure? Elijah asked. Yes, I'll make sure she gets to her room safely. Astrid stopped him. Wait! Before anyone leaves, I insist we all take the antidote, just in case. Nathaniel sighed and then briskly took the vial from Elijah, drinking a portion of the blue liquid. Rose took a sip, followed by Richard, Astrid, and finally Elijah. Nathaniel walked Snow out once everyone had taken it, with Rose following. Richard also wordlessly left the room, wanting to comfort Rose. Queen Astrid sighed with relief, facing towards the closing door and her back to Elijah. Poor girl. Poor indeed, he repeated, in a much lower tone than usual. She spun, her skirt twisting around her before it settled. Elijah held the comb up in his gloved hand. His fingers tapped against the jewels as he slowly approached Astrid. This wouldn't happen to be coated in Karoo pollen, would it? Astrid didn't bother lying to him. Instead, she folded her arms and pulled her gaze away from his. I can explain. I'm listening. Her eyes shot back at him, and the words rushed out as she grabbed his arm. I did it to protect us. Snow was researching poisons because she noticed the wolf's bane in the vials for Richard. She's getting too close to discovering our secrets. Elijah sighed, pulling away from her and tossing the comb on the table. It clinked against some of the glass bottles still occupying the space. Next, he stripped his gloves off and left them inside out a few inches away from the comb. He wearily sat down on the couch and sank into the cushions. A moment passed, and then he whispered, then maybe we should tell all four of them. What? Astrid gasped while the back of her shoe knocked into the table leg. She nearly fell backward, but she crashed down on her knees instead. Her hands gripped the dark green fabric of Elijah's pants as she visibly trembled. Elijah merely stared at her with a face made of stone. We can't do that. Richard will refuse the crown if that happens. Then we tell them once he marries Rose. It's only a matter of time, and Nathaniel won't want the crown anyway. Whatever the case, Astrid, killing Snow is hardly a solution. What we did was not on morality's side, but murder? No one would forgive us. Elijah's words pierced her soul. He had never said her name like that before. It was like he was saying the name of a poison. The miserable queen clenched the fabric of his trousers tighter as she held back tears. She was already a forsaken, wicked woman who attempted to kill not once, not twice, but 3 times. That little girl she thought Framsey killed was none other than Snow White, and he undoubtedly gave her the pig's heart because he realized how insane Astrid was. However, the prophetess had no reason to lie to the queen. A maiden or maidens with skin as snow and lips as red as blood would be Astrid's ruin. Somehow, someway, Snow White and Rose Red would expose Astrid. She wondered if anyone would love her when that day came. And after this, I'm sure you understand hurting Snow hurts Nathaniel as well, Elijah added after a long pause. Astrid's gut churned a little more. She gawked up at him, realizing he knew Nathaniel had touched the comb. Why else would she demand everyone drink the antidote? Oh, please, Elijah, she choked, I know how badly I messed up, but I'm terrified. Those girls are far too observant not to notice anything. They already know too much as it is. Despite his frustration and disappointment, Astrid's tears remained Elijah's weakness. He gently stroked her golden hair and wiped her tears with his thumb. I understand. I have the same fear, but Rose and Snow haven't shared Nathaniel's curse with anyone. And they are both exceptionally kind. Once they know, they will not pass harsh judgment. Queen Astrid breathed steadily. They won't harshly judge him, their beloved teacher, but they will for her. Promise me you won't do anything like this again, Elijah said, staring right into her eyes without blinking. I promise, she said, the lie slipping out so naturally that even she believed it. If only she had never chosen to be the king's bride. Maybe then her soul would have remained pure, but then would she have survived Elijah's condition?